You know, it's fascinating how Paul's life isn't as straightforward as we often think. There's this hidden chapter that just redefines his journey.
Yeah, I mean, most people picture him as the quintessential apostle, the dramatic conversion, the relentless missionary work. But there's, this really mysterious detour into Arabia that most of us barely discuss.
Exactly. I mean, here we have Paul saying in Galatians that after his conversion, he didn't immediately go to Jerusalem, but rather he went into Arabia, vanished for years, only
Right.
to reemerge later. It begs the question, what was he really doing out there?
And that's where it gets even more intriguing, isn't it? I mean, why Arabia? Surely it wasn't just a simple retreat. There's, some serious implications about his theological development during that time.
Absolutely. And what really twists the plot is when Paul mentions that in Damascus he was nearly captured by, get this, the Nabataean police under King Aretas. Not the usual Roman soldiers or temple guards from Jerusalem. It paints
Yep,
a picture
exactly.
of him being not just a missionary but a fugitive on the run.
I mean, getting lowered out of a window in a basket to escape arrest is straight out of an adventure novel. But it makes you wonder, what had he done in Arabia to warrant such a pursuit?
Right. It almost seems like Paul wasn't just idling away time in the desert. There's this, strong suggestion that he was involved with, or at the very least influenced by, these radical desert sects, specifically the ones connected to the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Exactly. When we think of the Qumran community, we usually say they were in Judea. But in Paul's time, that desert was actually part of the Nabataean kingdom. That means the so-called Dead Sea sects were, in a very real sense, operating within Arabia's sphere.
And, these communities were no ordinary religious groups. I mean, they claimed to be the sons of light, preaching about an apocalyptic battle between light and darkness,
Yeah, I
and a
see
new
that.
covenant. Those ideas they eerily echo in Paul's own letters.
Right. His writings are filled with that language. The radical break from temple law, the idea of a new revelation, and this sense of apocalyptic urgency. It's almost as if his time in Arabia was a crucible for these ideas.
Exactly. It's like, his years in Arabia weren't just a personal exile. They were a time when his theology was being forged in the fires of this intense desert-based movement. It's a perspective that really challenges the sanitized
Absolutely.
version of his story we see in Acts.
Speaking of Acts, it almost seems like Luke intentionally left out these scarier, more subversive details. Isn't it like a systematic sanitization to make Paul more palatable as Rome's missionary?
That's a fair critique. Acts gives us this neat, obedient apostle reaching out to the world, but it conveniently omits his, intricate ties to an apocalyptic desert movement and any hint of his being a wanted man by
Yeah,
Arabian
that's a strong
authorities.
point.
It's almost as if there was a deliberate editorial hand at work.
Right. And it makes you wonder about the motivations behind that omission. Maybe it was to protect the delicate balance between emerging church politics and the dangerous revolutionary ideas that Paul might have spread.
Exactly. When Paul reemerges, he stresses that his message wasn't derived from human sources like Peter or James, but was a divine
Indeed.
revelation. It's as if he's implicitly warning us that his insights came from more than just traditional teachings. They were honed in a crucible of radical ideas.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, the very idea that his theology might have been influenced by the sons of light of the Dead Sea Scrolls adds layers of depth to his message. But, I have to ask, don't you think it's a bit of a stretch to directly connect his writings with those sects?
Well, that's where scholars like Robert Eisenman, Geza Vermes, and Martin Hengel come in. They point out significant similarities in language and themes, like light versus darkness and a new covenant. It's a
True.
compelling parallel that might indicate Paul was either influenced by or even a part of that radical milieu for a time.
It certainly makes for a more dynamic understanding of him. Instead of just being this sanitized messenger, Paul might have been a revolutionary thinker who later adapted his persona to fit the dominant narrative of early Christianity.
Exactly, and think about it. If his theology was indeed shaped in this fiery, controversial Arabian environment, it explains why he later dismisses the need for traditional apostolic approval. He was, already on a different intellectual and spiritual wavelength than the leaders in Jerusalem.
Yep, absolutely. And that brings us back to the idea of his escape from Damascus. I mean, being chased by Nabataean police rather than the usual Roman guards, it's a stark reminder that his experiences were far from ordinary.
True, and it almost gives Paul this dual identity, one hand of him as the eloquent apostle preaching to the Gentiles, and the other as a fugitive, a man who dared to challenge the status quo of a radical desert community.
Exactly.
The juxtaposition is just mind-blowing.
It really is. So, if we're talking about the substance of his letters, you have to wonder, were they initially penned as part of this renegade apocalyptic discourse before being shaped by the demands of ecclesiastical orthodoxy?
That's a provocative thought. It's like his personal journey, from being an outlaw in Arabia to the structured, almost institutional leader we traditionally know, could have involved significant, if subtle, theological transformation.
Right on.
A kind of reinvention under pressure.
Exactly. And what's even more intriguing is that his claim of divine revelation might, in part, be a narrative device to validate this radical transformation. It gives his message an air of originality and independence.
Yes, it's almost as if being in isolation among these apocalyptic sects allowed him to cultivate a message that was, truly innovative, one that didn't have to literally align with the established traditions back in Jerusalem.
I can see that. And in that light, his accusations against temple-focused practices make a lot more sense. Rather than being a break from tradition, it might have been a conscious divergence from a system he found constraining.
Precisely. It's like, he rediscovered a whole spiritual universe out there in the Arabian deserts, one that challenged the orthodox narratives of his time. And clearly, that influenced his later work and the way he presents his gospel.
But one has to be cautious. Just because we see similarities in language and ideas doesn't automatically mean he was part of that sect or even fully embraced their doctrines. There could have been a lot of nuance involved.
Sure, that's a very balanced take. It might not be a complete adoption of the sect's beliefs, but rather a selective integration of some of their more, revolutionary ideas.
Right, exactly.
And maybe this selective process is what made his teachings resonate so powerfully with that sense of apocalyptic urgency.
Absolutely. It gives his gospel a rebellious flavor that was probably as dangerous as it was liberating at the time.
So, in a way, Paul's mysterious detour into Arabia isn't just a footnote. It might be the very crucible where his transformative theological outlook was formed.
Spot on.
It recontextualizes his entire mission.
And it forces us to rethink how we view the origins of early Christian theology, a mixture of established tradition and the more radical desert-inspired ideas.
Exactly, and before we wrap up, think about the broader impact. If Paul's ideas were indeed influenced by these apocalyptic desert sects, then what we've long accepted as Paul's gospel might be much more complex and dynamic than the sanitized version presented in Acts.
Yep, absolutely.
It's a narrative that dares us to question everything we thought we knew about the early church.
It really does. And it leaves us with so many haunting questions. Was Paul really the untainted apostle to the Gentiles, or was he once a revolutionary thinker, shaped by a perilous, radical environment?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's like Paul had a double life, a calculated public persona and a private chapter laden with mystery and danger. And it's these unsaid, almost erased episodes that might hold the key to understanding the evolution of his message.
In many ways, it's a reminder that history is rarely as simple as it appears. The sanitized version in Acts might be comforting, but the truth is potentially a much darker, more intricate tapestry of ideas and experiences.
Exactly. And if this perspective opens even a small window into the complexity behind Paul's story, then it challenges us to delve deeper into early Christian history.
Absolutely.
It invites us to embrace the mystery, rather than settle for convenience.
So, next time you hear someone talk about Paul as just the missionary to the Gentiles, remember this hidden layer: the secret years in Arabia, and the possibility that his most radical ideas were forged out in the desert.
Exactly. It's a narrative that definitely keeps our curiosity alive and our understanding evolving. Paul's story isn't just about conversion and letters. It's about transformation in the most unexpected
indeed.
places.
And that's what makes exploring these historical nuances so brave and important. It truly gives us a richer, more textured view of early Christian thought and its radical roots.
Absolutely. And I think that's a wrap on this fascinating, somewhat unsettling perspective. Thanks for diving into these secrets with me. As always, it's been an enlightening journey.
Right, thanks for the deep dive. And for everyone listening, remember, sometimes the truths that unsettle us are the ones that change our understanding the most. Thanks for tuning in.